We can't hear you.
Yes, sorry, I have been muted by the host by mistake. So, for those of you who are just joining now, sorry, we had just a session right before this that was looking at ease of Black African development, with speakers joining us from Brazil and from Haiti, sharing best practices in their experience on activities that in Brazil, in a community where almost over 80% of the population is Black, there is very little Black people who succeed in higher education, and disproportionate numbers when we look at the number of a population and the number of people who become who pursue higher education in university. And we also had somebody joining us from Haiti who left her post in France to invest everything she knew and could in Haiti after the earthquake to address the glaring gap in education in Haiti, the lack of access to resources, the lack of training for teachers, and the flawed educational system. That was a really, really interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Session 8 will be looking at the media at the service of democracy of development. This is session 8 of Nzuko 2022, the conference that is Africa's Economic and Cultural Week, our second edition this year. This year's edition is also online thanks to COVID, but we have been able to bring together over our session speakers from all over the world, and we really look forward to this session. So joining us today, we have a great panel composed of great people that I will introduce right now. Our first speaker is Obi Menon, who is a writer, producer, and director. He is now firmly established as the most prominent of a new generation of African filmmakers, taking the magic of independent cinema to the world. Obi is a former professional footballer and lawyer, and he's now a doctoral researcher in film at Goldsmith University in London, as well as a senior lecturer in filmmaking at the University of Huddersfield in the UK. His writing, producing, and directing credits include multi-award winning The Mirror Boy, a record-breaking called The Last Flight to Abuja, a mold-breaking series called Crazy, Lovely, and Cool, and the one-of-its-kind medical spiritual drama series Heart and Soul. So Obi, thank you so much for joining us today. You'll be speaking to us on towards the emergence of Nollywood cinema. So we all, I believe, are familiar in some way or another with Nollywood cinema, but please, you have the floor for 8 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you very much for having me. It is a great pleasure to be here. I didn't recognize the person you were talking about in your introduction. That's very flattering. I'm just a simple village man from Nigeria who lives in the UK, who's has the privilege of following my heart and doing what I love and loving what I do. And today I'm going to speak about, originally I titled it Towards the Emergence of Nollywood Cinema, but today I am going to narrow it down a bit more and speak about Nollywood cinema, what I call a disputed taxonomy, and the paradox of identity. This is part of my research, my doctoral research at the University of Goldsmith University of London, where I'm doing a PhD. And I embarked on this research because my encounter with global academia, critics, writers, and reviewers of Nollywood have been writers and critics who view Nollywood from the outside without taking into account the makeup of the film industry. So let me start by explaining how Nollywood came about. I use the word homogenizing term because Nigerian cinema, Nigerian film industry is a very complex, just like the country itself, made up of a lot of people, a lot of languages, a lot of practitioners in different parts of the country. So it's very difficult to say this, to use one word to describe all of that. So Nollywood is a rather flawed, sometimes disputed terminology to describe Nigerian film industry. But for the purpose of this exercise, I would use Nollywood as a blanket term for the Nigerian film industry. So he emerged in response to the economic and the political climate in 1992, when a man called Kenneth Nebwe released a film on VHS tapes called Living in Bondage. And in its early years, Nollywood was built on an infrastructure of piracy. By that, I mean Kenneth Nebwe and his friends in the same line of work, selling electronic equipment and pirating Hollywood and Bollywood films on VHS tapes to sell through market stalls and wheelbarrows in marketplaces, through distributors scattered all over the country. But when he made this film, Living in Bondage, he used that same infrastructure that was used originally to sell pirated films, to sell his films. So Nollywood's marriage with informality started from that very point. But Nollywood had a lot more influences, like the Yoruba traveling theater, which provided the aesthetics for Nollywood originally. The Nigerian Television Authority and the soaps that they were making at the time provided both the talent in front of camera and behind the camera to help the birth of Nollywood as a film industry. But in its early days, it was noted for its speed, the low costs, and its informality. However, Nollywood grew exponentially in the years that followed. And by 2009, it had become the second, the largest film industry in terms of volume of productions, ahead of Hollywood and only behind India's Bollywood. But then the criticism against the industry, its production quality and its spectacularly crude aesthetics continued. I would say with some justification. However, they say if you do something for long, you get experience in it and you get better. The untrained artisanal producers got more experience. More technical people, diasporans like myself, came on board to join the industry. And over the following years, the industry started to make a lot of progress in terms of quality. And when you add that to the new wave of Nollywood, which is called New Nollywood, which looks at production from a slightly different perspective and encourages the use of cinema release as part of the exploitation of the films, Nollywood became unrecognizable from that VHS-based film industry that started in 1992. So from zero cinemas in 1992, when Kenneth Nebwe made his film Living in Bondage, right now in Nigeria, there are over 232 screens showing Nollywood films alongside international blockbusters, and these Nollywood films matching these international blockbusters for both interest and box office returns. And also, in the last few years, Netflix and Amazon, two of the world's largest streaming websites, have set up Nigerian operations, offering bouquets of Nollywood content and staking enormous investment in the Nollywood film industry. I hear from the grapevine that HBO and Disney are also about to enter the fray for what I call the soul of Nollywood. So with all of this suggesting that quality is is culturally relative, that Nollywood has become Africa's most prolific and far-reaching cultural industry with a very passionate home support, local popularity, and a transnational dimension that is unprecedented in terms of its scope and its impact. But yet, international writers, critics, and academics, and even local academics have been really reluctant to classify Nollywood as cinema. Even the local Pan-African film festivals like FESPACO and the whole of the Francophone African film industry refuses to accept Nollywood, despising it, condemning it for what they call its video production quality. So the question now arose in my mind, what is cinema? Is there a prescriptive is it a prescriptive rather than the descriptive term? And must it cite what cinema is rather than defining the cinematic experience of the people that are watching the films? What are the conditions under which a particular film practice or a specific range of textual and individual industrial practice come under the name cinema? Is Nollywood cinema or video? Is it movie or film? Have the Nollywood cinema deserved the term cinema? Does it even need the term cinema? And to what extent has the paradoxical push and pull between identity and difference affected Nollywood? So in my research, I try to answer these questions looking at the philosophical characterization of cinema, in quotes, using the theories of Bazin, who is a very renowned French film theorist, Deleuze, if I got the pronunciation right, and Ponek. These are renowned, distinguished film theorists who have tried to deconstruct the meaning and the implication of cinema. Using their theories, I try to look at Nollywood side by side to see if there is what I call a putative criteria that a film industry has to meet to be considered cinema. Is it just about quality? Is it about being projected on a screen instead of being watched at home or on mobile phones like we're doing today? Is it about the technical advancement? Is it about the experience of the people who are watching? What is it? Is the term cinema, is it just being bandied about by critics who use it on a whim or based on their whims and their caprices? And finally, in my study, I try to investigate Nollywood's political identity paradox. By that, I mean, before that, I looked at Nollywood as a national cinema, and looked at the argument that the parameters of national cinema should be drawn at the site of consumption as well as at the site of production. So it means that for Nollywood to be Nigeria's national cinema, we don't only look at the production and the quality of the production. We also have to look at the reception of the audience, the consumers, the people that actually consume the film, and if the consumers should be looked at. Nigeria has grown what I call a hegemony in Africa, whereby almost to the level of cultural imperialism, whereby
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up because we're reaching the end of your speaking time. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Whereby Nigerian cinema and Nigerian films have dominated a lot of African countries and presented a whole new meaning to neo-Africanism. So finally, in my research, I looked at, Nollywood's political identity paradox. It means that while Nollywood is making grave efforts to stand alone and be itself in the face of international pressure, there is also the need to, while maintaining this very unique identity, to be able to I would say to mix better, to conform better with international norms, and
thank you.
Okay, that would be so. It's in wrapping all of those up, to look at what Nollywood has to do to be called cinema, and what effect the push and pull between identity and conformity is having on the industry as it enters a new age with streaming, Netflix, and Amazon on the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Obi. So without further ado, I'll go into the topic, pushing a bit further into arts and linking it to democracy and development. Our next speaker is Claire Mtui, who is a communications manager at Unleashed Africa and the founder of Mwana Trends. As a certified and professional performing artist, she has taught in more than 10 schools in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Claire works in different fields with the aim of initiating creative thinking and an artistic point of view. She believes that arts deserve a chance to speak for itself, and it has a role to play in various sectors towards a better Africa. These fields can include anything from theater and filmmaking, business administration, marketing, you name it. Claire has also been awarded the title of Sustainable Development Pioneer in the year 2019, and she'll be speaking to us today on performing arts and democracy. Claire, thank you so much for joining us. You have the floor.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you everyone who's joining today. Thank you to the panelists, my fellow panelists, Africans and African friends. Well, to start with, I would like to start with what really it is, because my discussion today will really draw from that. Well, performing arts basically is a collective term for acts performed in front of an audience. That is dance, drama, music, and you name it, theater, everything that is performed in front of an audience, that is basically performing arts. And for those things, dance, drama, and theater, to be communicated, usually we use media platforms, the film industry, of course. So you see how these things merge and can need each other, depend on each other to grow in a global arena. Well, performing arts does so much to not only the individual that is partaking or doing it, but also the audience, the targeted audience that the performance is being done towards. So things like in encouraging emotional exploration, performing arts helps individuals expand their imagination, help them work together, teamwork, because usually for you to communicate something to an audience, you really need to do your research. You need to know the community that you're communicating to. I mean, those are just basics of communication, much more in performing arts. So it teaches individuals and equips individuals with self-expression tools, with a broader mindset of things and their surrounding in general. Well, I can say that in addition to that, it promotes it promotes self-expressions in people. And I think that's one of the most important things for us Africans, mapping our history and everything, enabling a person, a youth, an individual to be able to express themselves well and be understood by different people. I think that's a very key thing, because we see many good ideas, many innovative minds failing to reach their potential because they cannot express themselves correctly. And according to research of several art schools, it is seen that dance and boxing, of course, but dance in this aspect is the only sport or activity that engages both the left and the right side of the brain. So when you're dancing or when you're preparing to dance, both your left and right side of your brain are working together. That is, your emotions, your movement, both conscious and subconscious movements are correlating together. So having such knowledge and having the ability to navigate through this unity of self is, I think, a powerful tool. And of course, my dear Crystal mentioned on me being a community manager at Unleashed Africa. Well, Unleashed Africa has a branch that specifically I am in as a performing artist, and also I have been fortunate to be a team member of. And what Unleashed Academy does is we push for creative arts and leadership. We have different departments in Unleashed Academy that are specially designed to cater to these needs and cater to them not only in the surface area, but from the roots. So when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about development that can truly last generations, this is what Unleashed Academy is really targeted at reaching towards. And of course, our motto in Unleashed Academy is creative arts and leadership, of course, where we have artists spearheading socioeconomic development in Africa and in their countries and in the world, of course, at large. Well, if we go back to the history of performing arts in Africa, history tells us that performing arts really engaged or started emerging in the mid-20th century. This is the pre-colonial era, of course, where we had the transatlantic trades, different trade activities happening. And we had different ethnic groups meeting, and expression was being done, and presentations were being done to express different ethnic groups, to differentiate them. And I think here is where history tries to say that performing arts emerged, but I beg to differ, because this same history tells us that Africans used to sit down in the fire in the evenings, and generally the way we communicated was having different people in the fire, and there will be storytellers, people telling stories about their days, about the things they've seen. There would be dancers, singers, musicians, instrumentalists performing, because back then this was just a way of communicating, but this is what the modern day call performing arts. So we see there are many roots that had begun in Africa concerning performing arts. But what had happened is that media in the 20th century just managed to start to publicize the performing arts, I can say performing arts movement in Africa, but also the challenge that have arose due to emergence of media and performing arts collaboration is that most of the performing arts pieces and works that are being shown today in the news and media platforms are originally westernized. So this is a bit of a controversy, I can say, because what I'm trying to say is that most of the performing arts pieces have histories that are rooted in Africa. And of course, they have tried to customize them and make them their own, but truly their roots, if we see about what I just mentioned on how we used to communicate as Africans, how everything we used to do was in communication was engaging performing arts, you would see that the actual roots came from home, right here, Africa. So with saying this, we see that Africans themselves have not taken hold of performing arts as their own. I mean, this was the story for the longest time, but fortunately, this few years, artists have taken hold of performing arts, and we see them now making movements and trying to own the arts sector as they truly deserve. And this has led to things like Western music, West African music being the top music right now as we speak. The movie sector is now the theater sector in Africa is now starting to develop in a global aspect. But there still is a lot of work to be done in general, because there are very many, many programs prepared that are so-called aimed to help Africans identify their performing arts identity, but then truly it has not been as effective.
Yeah.
But why? Yes. But
No,
why
sorry.
does it seem?
You have
Yes?
like 1 minute.
Okay, no problem. Yes, sorry. Well, but then there's hope, because Unleashed Academy has started a change in 2016 where we are finding naturally talented performing arts. We equip them with artistic education and expose them to opportunities that will allow them to better understand and exercise and finally achieve their full potential as artists, leaders, and global citizens. I myself being one of those artists. And of course, we have services like School Creative Arts Program, the Creative Arts Agency, Creative Kids Summer Camp, and so many other where we initiate creative curriculums and make sure that young Africans now grow with the identity, with the proper knowledge of artistry. And of course, we have products like Msanii Imara, where we train artists who are already on different platforms speaking on behalf of Africa, or enabling other artists, inspiring other artists. We train these artists that are already in these platforms and equip them with proper information to grow sustainably and develop Africa as a genre. And with everything said and done, we're calling to action anyone who would like to be a part of this movement, because we can see that through different departments, job creation is being made. Development economically, socially is prominent if we take this aspect of performing arts and use it the right way. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Some very good points. I want to encourage the audience to make use of the Q&A function in Zoom to put some questions okay, we already have questions coming in. Keep the questions coming, use the Q&A function. You can also use the chat to talk between yourselves, react, agree, disagree with anything you've heard so far. We're very curious to know what you think about what has been discussed. So before I take any of the questions, I want to move to our third and last speaker of this session and of the conference of Nzuko 2022, Amar Amartefio, who is joining us to talk on supporting a free press for a stronger Africa. Nii, thank you so much for joining us. You are a strategic communications expert, a journalist, an event consultant, and the CEO of Landmark Media Solution. You've spent most of your career in the media as a broadcast journalist, a producer, public relation, event hosting, event organization, concept development, script writing, and event management. You've worked extensively as a media manager and coordinator for the Energy and Environment Forum in River State in Nigeria and in South Africa. And you've been the media director for Shiro's International Forum in Accra and in Dubai. Currently, you are, I believe, a part-time consultant in the Foreign Investment Network, and you'll be speaking to us today on the overall topic of media at the service of democracy and development, but precisely coming in on supporting a free press for a stronger Africa. Nii, thank you so much for joining us. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Crystal. And you've done a great job today. We've been moderating this event very well. And thank you to you. And let me also say thank you to the event organizers for this wonderful, wonderful August event. It's been wonderful 3 days. So let me go straight to my presentation today. I was speaking on the media at the service of democracy and development, and I'll be focusing more on supporting a free press for a stronger Africa. So members of the community organized this great festival and all others protocol duly observed, let me say it is an honor and a great pleasure to make this important presentation on the need to support a free press for a stronger Africa. Indeed, the broader conversation, media at the service of democracy and development, is critical and timely to the continent's socioeconomic and political progress, as well as this festival. Ladies and gentlemen, statistics by the United Nations estimate that Africa's current population as of Wednesday, May 11, 2022, is 1,400,072,952. And hopefully this data is expected to increase to reduce by a slim margin, holding mortality birth rate constant over the week. Now, the population of Africa represents 16.72% of the world total population and has majority as active youth who are ready and willing to contribute their quota to the growth and development of this continent through active engagement. A situation which is facilitated by the media, hence the need to support a free press for a stronger Africa. Now I ask the question, is there a press freedom in Africa? And I'm sure this morning, all of us are going to answer this question adequately, because press freedom is very, very vital to the development of this continent. Now, press freedom has many facets in Africa. While some parts of this continent is glued to democracy, other parts are also living with dictatorship, military rule, and the use of coup d'etat to rule a nation, when in turn limit free speech in those specific areas. And let me name a few: Guinea-Bissau, Rwanda, Mali, part of Cameroon, Zambia, Uganda, among others. However, despite the wave of media liberalization and pluralism since the 1990s, there are still many cases of capricious censorship, especially on mainstream media and on the internet, with occasional network shutdown in some countries, arrest of journalists, and violent attacks on media personnel. Again, the media is being threatened by national security, vigilante forces, and the powerful people in our society. Journalists are sometimes picked up, others are kidnapped or killed in their line of duty. This, among other life-threatening challenges, are what the media in Africa faces. For example, in 2016, journalist Berima Tuwari disappeared and was kidnapped by a Malian intelligence agency, and most likely he was detained and later killed. Another was in Uganda in 2018, where journalists who criticized the government were attacked, kidnapped, and to the extent that the president of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni, described journalists as parasites. More so, in recent months, the Kingdom of Eswatini has seen frequent internet shutdown. Adding to all this, as elections draw closer in Lesotho and Zimbabwe, journalists in this region say they are experiencing clampdowns on social media. This is not a good story to tell when it comes to freedom in African media. Let me come down to Ghana, my own country. A Ghanaian investigative journalist, Ahmed Swali, and I'm sure all of you have heard of him, with the investigative team Tiger IPI, headed by Anas Arimayao Anas. This man was assassinated following a verbal warning by a politician live on air. After 3 years of his death, I am sad to say that no one has been brought to book. Some Ghanaian top journalists have all faced this horrible side of the national security apparatus in the line of their duty. Hence the big question, is there media freedom in Africa? Ladies and gentlemen, this recent report by Reporters Without Borders in 2022, International Press Freedom Index indicate that the media in Africa is very, very problematic and difficult to practice in this continent. This worrying affirmation was shown in their recent report, and I encourage each and every one of us to log on to the Reporters Without Borders website to look at this recent survey. Quite disturbing. More often, the media is poorly supported by the government and is dependent on the editorial dictates of their owners. African media outlets struggle to develop sustainable economic models to empower journalists, a situation sometimes compromises on the quality and professionalism of the work being done by us. My country, Ghana, is fast sliding backwards on press freedom. 2 decades ago, my country permitted freedom of speech. In recent months, however, the police force has been arresting and detaining journalists, a situation civil society organizations are outraged and speaking up against. And this is not only in Ghana, it's in Rwanda, same in Cameroon, and in Lesotho. In 2001, Ghana repealed the criminal libel and seditious law and proclaimed journalists can publish and broadcast without fear of official retaliation. But press freedom looks threatening again in my country. In recent months, police have arrested, detained journalists after they publish or broadcast reports critical of officialdom. And there are many examples I can give, but for the lack of time, I'll deal with this horrible experience later. Now, let me ask again, how does media serve our democracy and development? Let me say that the media has over the years in Africa proven to be strong and independent to an extent that it has played its key role as the fourth arm of government, creating a platform for freedom of expression on topical issues, playing its surveillance and watchdog role effectively and ensuring a balance in its reportage. We've sustained peace and national cohesion in various countries for the growth of this continent. The media in Africa has played a pivotal role in developing Africa. It's been 3 decades down the lane since most African countries embarked on the third wave of democracy or democratic governance after many countries have experienced authoritarianism, libertarianism, socialism, and communism. The proliferation of political institutions and the regularity of elections hitherto unheard of in this certain part of Africa, and a decline military coup in fewer African countries are pointed to a positive direction that democratic consolidation on the continent is on the increase. But despite these major steps of procedural democracy, some governments have said that media in Africa is the way to go.
Nee, thank you very much for your comments.
I would like to end here by calling on all of us to help shape and develop the media in Africa, because it's the only way that we, the Africans, can tell our own story, our own way. We can only do this through the media. And Africa need to promote their media to the strongest terms. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. I don't know what has happened, but you three have woken up the fire of the audience. We have so many questions coming in through the chat and also through the Q&As. It's coming from everywhere. I apologize in advance to the audience because I will not be able to take all of the questions today, but we will do our best. So I have a first question from Gochugu to, I believe, maybe to Obi, but if anyone else wants to jump in and answer, Claire and you are welcome to. Do you believe Nollywood lacks government support which could help with quality development, for instance? Obi, would you like to give it a quick answer?
Yes, Nollywood by its very history has developed without government support. It's kind of, like I said earlier on, started on an infrastructure of piracy. It's very informal in its dealings. Even when the Nigerian Video Censors Board tried in 2007, 2009 to bring some kind of government involvement in it, the industry refused to be, beaten into shape. So it's been very hard for both government and the organized private sector investment to come into Nollywood. But things are beginning to change now. Government has seen that Nollywood is its best advertisement all over the world. And in recalibrating the Nigerian economy, they've seen that Nollywood brings the tipping point that makes Nigeria the #1 economy in Africa over South Africa. So there's a recognition of the value of Nollywood. Government is trying to get involved. They've attempted to, give loans and give soft loans and give grants. It hasn't worked, but the private sector is beginning to come in because the structure for returning money is becoming clearer and people can invest and see where their money is coming back from. So there's progress.
Thank you. Next question, I'm just going to put it to all speakers. We have a question from Khalila Mbowe, who is asking, what can we do as a collective to decolonize the creative industry on the continent? And I think this can perhaps extend to media and journalism, Nii, if you want to give it a try. Claire, would you like to answer first, very briefly?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, there's a lot to be done. There's a lot. I was thinking of how to first answer this question, but I think there are many organizations that have already started making a step towards creating a democratic nation for everyone. But then I think it's due time that everyone individually first start seeing the value of creative arts in each sector and not separate creative arts as a different sector, because I think the problem also arises when we see different parts of the different parts that are contributing to our economic and social development separated. There's the economic sector, there's the different sectors, but then if we put performing arts in each sector as a compulsory part of development and creating sustainable growth, I believe there's so much that can change in general. So I think there's the introduction of performing arts in these sectors, not as a separate entity, but as part of their systems. I think that's key.
That's key, and it will link to another question that I would like to put to you in a second. But first, I want to give the two gentlemen over here a chance to address it if they would like to. What do you think we can do to decolonize further, perhaps the creative industry on the continent? Obi, would you like to give it a go, very briefly?
Oh, did you say me?
Yeah, if you would like to.
Yes. I think it's a tricky situation when we are appropriating a method, a medium that was Western. There's a certain change you can bring to the table, but I think we are indigenizing a little bit the media sector We are allowing local voices to be heard. We are refusing to accept the cultural imperialism and indoctrination of the West. Take it hook, line, and sinker. We are questioning. We are interrogating a bit more. I think that needs to happen. I think it's happening at the moment. But completely decolonize is rather difficult because we are using the same medium that we were colonized with. So there's a conundrum.
Yes, I think that is relevant perhaps for film and for photography perhaps, but I think it might be easier in other, for example, sculpture or other arts and performing arts, for example. Nii, would you like to add anything to this?
Yes, as Obi rightly said, we cannot entirely depart from colonialism because we are working with them at this point in time. And if you know, most of African journalists always travel outside to work with our partners in Europe, and we sometimes bring back what we've learned. So we cannot shift entirely from them, but what we can do is to enforce our own story. We should be able to tell our own story, our own way. And Africans in the diaspora must learn to know that the story of Africa can only be told by us and nobody else.
Mm-hmm. And it seems we've had 8 sessions so far. Every session has the same thing that comes back again. Yesterday, somebody said, until the lion can tell his story, it will always be the hunter.
The lions or the hunter will always glorify the hunter.
Every session, this has come back. It just speaks to the vision of AfricaFora and the whole reason we're doing Nzuko 2022. And we hope to keep reaching more and more people to hear these voices such as yours that we're putting here. There's another question I have for you, Nii, and then I'll have a follow-up question for Claire in a second. Do you believe that online press empowers the freedom of speech to journalists?
It's a double-edged sword. It's quite dicey. It's good to promote online journalism. It gives the journalist the freedom to express him or herself without any challenges, without any borders, right? But it's also allow people to say things which cannot be verified, which hurts other people as well. So the pluralism in the online media is good, but we need to be very careful and do it professionally. Because most people don't have any training at all in journalism. Since they have data and they have a phone, they can just jump on and write anything whatsoever about anybody without cross-checking. And you can't even find those people, right? So as much as we need to promote online journalism, we have to be very circumspect in terms of practicing and what to put on the online media.
Thank you. And I think it speaks also to a conversation of a conference I was organizing a few weeks ago, looking at the freedom of the press. And we had speakers joining from Malta and from the US, and they made the exact same point. It seems like it's a trend worldwide of this double-edged sword and the verification of information, but also the sponsoring of information and getting money to fund a free press. Because that investigative journalism and transparent journalism also costs a lot, and we need to support journalists better to do their job properly, because journalism is a key pillar if we want a functioning democracy. We keep talking about corruption in the executive, the legislative, the judiciary. If we don't talk about the lack of support that journalism is getting, then we're not going to move forward. But with that, I just want to move to another question for Claire. There's actually quite a few. There's one that says worldwide traditions are intrinsically linked to performing arts. And that is even perhaps more true in Africa. So do you think that performing arts can mobilize people to feel more invested in their society and culture? And could this perhaps translate into fighting for a more sustainable and solid democracy to preserve our freedom and our powerful artistic traditions? Sorry.
Yes. Well, yes, I would definitely agree with that. I think arts is a very more impactful way of communicating and really making a message dive into hearts and in the consciousness, subconsciousness as well of individuals. So using arts, using our own arts. And I think there's another question that I saw concerning of how artists can really have a voice without going abroad and using their different cultural artistic references. And I would like to answer them together, because once we identify our own art and identify the roots, where in the beginning of performing arts, we see that every communication that was done in Africa was through performing arts. That means every word, every movement in dance, every poem, every song was written to communicate something. It had meaning. So once us as artists and Africa as a whole take the opportunity that we have to express ourselves in art our own way, in our own voice, in our own platforms that should be created, and some are created, I think this would definitely lead to a democratic movement. What specifically you said, free, what did he specifically mention? Freedom of, let me read it, sorry, just a second. Fight for democracy and freedom and of our powerful artistic traditional expressions. So yeah, I definitely believe so. But also, can I just add on that, on my answer, is that in order to do this, I think every artist currently in different sectors, they need to be equipped with the right knowledge, with the right history, because that's what most foreign countries have at least tried to take an advantage of. They're really educating their artists and creating platforms for them to really understand themselves. So I think we should all, as Africans, even though you're not specifically looking to be a performing artist, I think you should learn some few aspects of it for you to be able to influence people around you who want to get into that field. So yeah, so that issue. Yeah.
I think it's important. I mean, we see young kids all over Europe after school, they take drama classes, even if they're not going to become, a screenplay or an actor or comedian, but it does help for their personal development and their involvement, like you're saying. I have another question for Nii. I'll come back to Obi in a second. I'll have to bring this conversation to a close, unfortunately, very soon, but it might sound like a bit of an odd question, but it has to have a purpose. Do you feel like the profession of journalism in general and the news media is one that is attractive at the moment for the younger generation? Because given the state of the protection of journalists, do you think that we have people who want to have this passion and want to go into it?
Okay, well, as a practicing journalist who has been in the industry for more than 10 years, I would say yes. I will not discourage young African people not to enter into journalism, because let me tell you one thing that people need to know. I mean, the only way the story can be told and be told well to a larger audience is through the media. So if we don't encourage people to go into the media to tell the story, who will do that? Because don't forget that the media is the only way that can reach people homogeneously in a very heterogeneous places. It's only the media that can do that. For example, in the leaders in Africa have proposed that in 2026, they want to see the Africa that we want. Which people are going to propagate this gospel? It's through the media. So as much as there is a lot of risk involved, people's life have been threatening. But I mean, this is what we call occupational hazard, and it happens in every facet of employment. So regardless of whatever the sad stories will be, I will still encourage people to enter into journalism to tell the African stories. And I will repeat again, until the lions begin to tell their own story, the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.
Of course. And I didn't mean to discourage anyone that is in the audience today from going into journalism. I strongly support and I fully believe that more attention and more light needs to be brought to the plight of journalists. I just wanted to ask that question. Obi, I think I'll come with one more question. It's a comment. There's a conversation going in the chat between the Q&A and the chat on Nollywood at the moment, and I want to bring your attention to it. It's talking about how Nollywood's film festival is held in Frankfurt, Germany, which contributes to Frankfurt and Germany's economy, because all of these people are going to hotels, they're going to eat in the restaurants, they're using the taxis, et cetera, et cetera. And isn't that a bit counterproductive? And one of the commenter, Uzoma, has made the comment, have you ever heard of the French Film Festival in Cannes to be moved to any other city than Cannes? Why does Nollywood organize hers in a foreign land? If we want to make an omelette, we have to break an egg. Do you have any comments to that?
First of all, the Frankfurt Nollywood Film Festival is not organized by Nollywood. There's nothing like Nollywood. There's no centralized administration that is Nollywood. Nollywood is a fractured group of people making films, telling stories with whatever they've got. So let's disabuse their minds and think that there's a place that you can go and you find everybody called. I live in the UK, but I work out of Nollywood. So Nollywood is a mindset. It's not an entity, legal or not. First of all, that there are film festivals in Nigeria. I'm on the jury of 2 of them. One is one of the biggest film festivals about African films. It's called AfriFora. It's held in Lagos and it was held in Calabar before that. The Coal City International Film Festival is also held in Lagos, a Coal International Film Festival that just happened. There are lots of film festivals in Nigeria, and you have to understand where Nollywood is coming from. We're not coming from the film festival sector. It was a subsistence film industry. People just made films to make money. There was no artistic integrity involved. Gradually, that has crept in, and the film festivals are there to support it. And the reason it's happening in Frankfurt, just like it's happening in Greece this weekend, is because they're able to find funding for it. They usually have funding for diversity and minority events, and somebody would make the application, get the money, organize the event. That doesn't exist in Nigeria. I think what we need to do as Africans is to celebrate ourselves a bit more. Otherwise, people would usurp our name, usurp our stories, and use it to better themselves.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Obi. Thank you, Nii, and thank you, Claire. Thank you to all 3 of you for this conversation. Unfortunately, I think there are still questions in the chat and we can go on forever, but I'm going to have to bring this to a close. Before I do, though, we've been speaking about putting the light on our talent, our African talent, and this is something that we've been doing throughout the conference. So I just want to speak more, just showcase very quickly one of the talents that we spoke of yesterday, which is the delivery drone that we shared with you yesterday, that is created by a very young boy who he's 22 and he's been making these from scratch, completely autodidact. And this is a delivery drone. As I said yesterday, this is a drone that addresses the fact that we have complicated logistics, and this drone is made in such a way that it cannot crash and the package cannot be damaged. So I just wanted to bring the attention to this again. And then we have another talent, and the one that we'll be putting the spotlight on today. This is more footage about the drone that was shared with you yesterday in more depth. So the second talent, and the one that we're focusing on today, is one that is Favour Oluma, who is 22 years old, and she is the founder and CEO of Retired Glam Enterprises. As you can see on the screen, she's a seasoned and experienced entrepreneur in the field of upcycled products, and she has created Retired Glam. It's a young and dynamic company, and that has provided proudly upcycled products of very high quality and standard for individuals, government organization, film sets, and various other groups. They create state-of-the-art qualitative upcycled products and train individuals on ways and processes in carrying out upcycling of products so that they can go ahead and start their own businesses. So in a sense, it's both an enterprise, upcycling, but also a social enterprise in the fact that it also shares knowledge and builds on knowledge in the community and training these people so that they can in turn create their own business and take this entrepreneurial knowledge and go on their own. So this was started during the lockdown using tires from around Favors area to recycle them into household furniture inspired by what was already available around her and make use of those resources to turn it into something unexpected. Her prototype went viral thanks to social media, the tool of the 21st century for unsupported creators of the continent. And now this is a fully fledged business with which Favor has created over 150 objects since she created it a few years ago. The company aims to expand now into recycling more plastics. Again, just like the drone, Favor is completely autodidact. She was studying before this, and then during the pandemic, she decided to put her time into this because she believed in it. She's since invested into sharing some of her processes to share the knowledge of upcycling and recycling in her area. And she has been working out of her home, self-financing and finding ways to support and transport her orders from Minna to Abuja in Nigeria. And despite all of this, the furniture that you can see here today is a testament to the unending creativity and entrepreneurship of the young African youth and a further cry for more support. So for more information on all of these products, for more information on the delivery drone that you saw a few seconds ago, for more information on the aquatic loft that we shared on Tuesday, and for more information on the retired Glam house furniture, you can contact us at admin@AfricaFora. If you would like to invest or if you'd like to purchase the aquatic loft, please don't hesitate to contact us and reach out to us through the email that has been put in the chat, I believe. And so with this, having spotlighted our talents, I want to come back to our session, Media at the Service of Democracy and Development. Obi, Claire, and Nii, it was a pleasure having you for this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. A communique with the findings and the highlights of the session, but also the whole conference, will be circulated next week. And as we've repeated so far, what we're trying to do is not only find African solutions to African problems, but it's moving away from pointing the finger to the problem and actually building on the solutions and stop talking, more doing. All of the sessions, including this one, will be available on our website as of next week. So you can rewatch and share with those who weren't able to join us today. More information on the talents and innovators video that we shared and the aquatic loft. As I said, contact us. And if you'd like to work with us on future panels, but also if you would like to input on the solutions that were brought here today, just contact us again, same email, admin@africafora.com. With this, I would just like to bring the session to a close and give the floor to the founder of AfricaFora. She is a former journalist and she is a community leader, Winifred Gaillard. She is with us today, and I believe she will be joining us very shortly to give us a closing word on the conference. Winnie, thank you so much for your trust in moderating the conference. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Crystal. Thank you very much, the panelists, for today. It's been, as usual, a wonderful time. I had fun listening to all of you. Thank you for making time to be here, despite your very busy schedule. We are grateful, we appreciate. I don't have much to say. You all have said it from day one to today. It's all about solution, solution, solution. Everybody knows the problem. How do we go from pointing fingers to having real solutions, feasible solutions that we can that are practical, feasible, practical, that we can put to place in Africa, no matter where. The basic thing is for Africans to come together as one and stop looking at ourselves as from one country or another. Collective action is what Africa needs. By next year, by this time next year, by May 25th next year, 2023, Africa Day will be 60 years old. Africa Day, which was when the Organization of African Unity was formed, will be 60 years old. And we ask, and you look back and ask yourself, where are we? Me personally, I think that we are far behind. I mean, things were better then, if you ask me, than it is today. And even at that, we had our politicians who were fighting, who had, I mean, our politicians of those days had vision and mission. There was interest, there was public interest in what they were doing. They were not just thinking about themselves and their pockets. And they gave hope. And I mean, the citizens had dreams and hopes. You know, I mean, we all have fathers, we all have grandfathers who lived then. They will tell you that their lives were better than it is today. So what we're trying to say is that if we don't want that to continue, we have to come together. And this is what is behind AfricaFora's Nzuko event. It is for, the interest is to awaken the private sector, civil society to come together, because we believe that that's where the salvation will come. If we're able to come together as a people and not look at ourselves as countries, you know, we need to be that pressure, what do you call it? Pressure that will influence the decisions of government. You know, we need to be that, if we come together and they get to realize that, listen, the citizens are coming together and forming into a body. And no matter where the thing is happening, everybody is speaking in one voice. If something wrong happens in Nigeria, all the Africans will condemn that. Instead of saying, okay, it is in Ghana, it is in Nigeria, it's not my business, it's that. So they will come together and, we'll come together and put forward whatever we think the solution is. It will get to a point where they cannot do without us, you know. It definitely will come to a time where they cannot do without us. And what's happening today in like when you think of what's happening today in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine has woken the world up. It's like the way people talk about Ukraine, the war in Ukraine and the refugees from Ukraine. It's like we're seeing war for the first time. Whereas if you sit back and count, there are about 7 other wars going on in the world, and nobody cares about it. Why? Europe doesn't want war on their continent and they want it elsewhere. If we come together as Africans, we will say stop to the wars on our own continent as well. How do you think that everybody is condemning? I mean, go to the refugees. Let's look at the refugees. There was a case that happened in Greece recently. There was a guy, I think he came from either Afghanistan or somewhere, and he's been in Greece for quite a while, I think about a year or so. And he goes to these food camps to collect foods. And on this day he got there, they were told, oh, if you're not from Ukraine, go back. Ukrainians are the only legal refugees. I mean, how is this possible?
Thank you.
How did we get here? So the thing is that we have to realize as Africans that we have a lot of Africans, Blacks, and friends of Africans, a lot of Westerners who do not buy the situation of the how do you say, the treatment of people. It's like we're an animal farm where all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Why? How is it that we're not all equal? How is it that we're treated differently? So it is our fight. We have to make our problem, because if Ukraine did not stand when this thing started, at least I think everybody saw that at least for 10 days, they were on their own. But when the world saw that they were not budging, I think people came back and started supporting them in one little way or another. So what I'm just saying is that what that shows us is that our fight is ours to fight, and then people will join us. So we in AfricaFora, we're using this avenue, this conference avenue to, discuss, bring to the fore the issues we think, or bring people who share our views. But after the event, like we say, this is not a place where you sit down and talk. And then at the end of the year, you go, at the end of the day, you go and everybody goes about their business. After the talk comes the walk the talk stage. And this is where we also need all of you who answer present for this occasion to answer present in that other stage where we need to bring together all the propositions that were put forward here and see how we can practicalize it. Because this is what Africa needs. We need to empower our people economically if we need to go forward. I heard about the journalism. I mean, it is just all of us who have to come together and do it. And whatever we choose to support, whatever cause we need to support, we'll do it collectively. And that is the only time we can make noise. That is the only time we can have impact. Because when we sit individually or in our different countries and we do things locally, because a lot of, as we speak, a lot of things are happening. Because they're scattered here and there, they're not being noticed. But when we come together to act collectively, we make more impact. Thank you so very much for making time to be here. Thank you, the panelists. Thank you, the attendees. We appreciate your presence and we thank you so much. I look forward to having you again next year. Thank you, Crystal, for your wonderful work. And thank you, my team, for being there for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So as she said, we want to extend a special thank you for our team, the logistical team, and everyone else who's been working behind the scene and making this possible. It wouldn't be possible without you. We want to thank all of our speakers who joined us throughout the 3 days. Those who weren't able to join us, we still appreciate your input and your efforts in joining us in making all of this possible. And we also want to thank you guys who are watching us live or rewatching it on our website. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. And please don't hesitate to follow us on social media or to reach out to us with admin@africafora.com for more information on our activities and to know how to get involved if you'd like to partner with us, if you'd like to sponsor, invest in the talents and innovators that we've shared, the delivery drone, the retired Glam house furniture, or to purchase the aquatic cloth that we shared earlier, or just to have more information on the speakers. You can go onto our website. All of the bios and all of the description of our speakers are directly there. So that's it. That brings it to an end. This is the end of Nzuko 2022. Don't worry, there'll be another edition next year. It'll be even better. So stay tuned. Follow us on social media to know what we are doing, and keep safe. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.